All right, take a look here. Vols better. We ended the last segment by chatting about this. Last year's numbers are kind of in orange. This year's numbers are in white. And some of these are just different ways of looking at the same thing. But still, block percentage is up. And what this shows you, the percentile thing basically tells you, you see the actual number, but the percentile on the right tells you where Tennessee is in terms of the rest of college basketball, 360 schools or whatever. Tennessee in their block percentage, the percentage of shots they block, 18.6 or 18.8, that's the 99th percentile. So you're as good as anybody in the country, basically. 2-point percentage, you're scoring more inside than you did last year. Offensive rebounding percentage is up. Paint points per game, percentage of points that you're getting in the paint, blocks per game, all up, all better. Mark, when the season ended and everyone was kind of surprised that Awaka and Adu had departed, everyone was kind of worried that, okay, what's going to be your inside game? You had to go find something to make it better or at least be the same. Darned if you didn't get better. So far, now this numbers track the non-conference part of the schedule. Right. We'll look at them again at the end of a tough conference row because it is a hard conference. But for now, they've taken a step forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the versatility between Felix and Igor in our ball screen offense, ball screen defense, and spreading the floor out tremendously to get Zakai in there. Zakai is making the right pass. I mean, just some simple stuff that we take for granted with Zakai. Like, Chaz makes a bucket. He goes out of his way to find Chaz the next possession to get him another shot because he's feeling good. So the spacing on the floor with the versatile bigs, even with Cade Phillips' athleticism, that's a different level of athleticism that we saw coming off the bench last year, even with – because we put Josiah at the 4. Josiah wasn't setting ball screens and rolling. He was a okay shooter. So that's really helped our offensive side. And then Felix defensively guarding the rim allows our guys to be really aggressive on the perimeter.
Okay, now I want to move on to something else, and I'll bring you guys in for this one. All right. A few weeks ago, early on, I said I declared my love for Igor Milicic. That's everybody's got to go over Chaz Lanier. He's a heck of a shooter and a great scorer. But I was like, yeah, but Milicic does a little bit of everything. So I did this last year. We went and looked. CBB Analytics does a great job. A lot of colleges and pro teams pay them for their numbers, and I'm silly enough to be a man who does it. But they do a breakdown of what teams' top players do on and on, what the team does on and off when this player is on or off the court. And they do it against offensive rating and defensive rating. That's their metric. But they also look at what are called the 4 factors. That's effective field goal percentage, that's turnover percentage, that's offensive rebounds. Anyway, it's like 4 different percentages. We'll show you what they are. And they do it for when you're on offense and when you're on defense. And you'll see, let's go ahead and put it up. So you'll see the top 7 players for Tennessee in terms of minutes. Where it's green means you are better when this guy's on the court. Where it's red, it means you're worse. There are 10 different categories there. The stats are offensive rating, effective field goal percentage, offensive rebound percentage, turnover percentage, free throw attempt rate, defensive rating, and then those opposite fields. So the same stats, just when the other team has the ball. Igor Milicic, opponent free throw attempt rate is the only thing that you're worse in when he's on the court. 9 of the 10 categories, you are better when Milicic is on the court. We did this last year. There was no one close to 9 out of 10 being better. The surprise there, the low man on the totem pole, Chaz Lanier. You are only better in a couple of those stats when Lanier is out there, and I think most of us would say, yeah, but he's the scorer. And I think you have to look at that and think, yeah, well, I think people kind of let Lanier do his thing when he's out there. Doesn't mean you're not good, just means some of those other stats take a step backward. But to me, it does speak to the fact that Igor Milicic has a more overall impact on this team, bigger overall impact on this team than anybody else out there, in my opinion. You guys can agree or disagree. The stats may lie in your opinion. Go ahead.
Yeah, when Igor committed to come to Tennessee, I was really intrigued because of what his role would be. He's the first power forward that has come to play for Rick Barnes that has true stretch ability. Grant Williams became that in the NBA. That was not his role at Tennessee, and he was a great player, don't get me wrong. But in terms of what Igor does to the spacing, Mark brought that up earlier in the segment, what that does to what other players are able to do within the offense and how teams have to defend Tennessee. And then you throw Zakai Ziegler, a senior point guard, into the equation with his ability to set everybody up. Everything that they do collectively, Igor changes what those other players, his teammates, are able to do. Plus his own ability to hit shots and do different things.
I totally agree with that. And what he does, too, he's not just a stretch 4. He can basically run your offense from that point position because he's such a great passer. And he can get you in the right play. his basketball IQ is evident so much. He does so many things. John Calipari, the first player he brought up when someone asked him about Tennessee last night wasn't Chaz Lanier, it was Igor Milicic. It's not a discredit
knock
on Lanier.
That's right.
No, but he was talking about the
29
transfer that came in. He was talking about Igor.
Right, exactly. So when I watched him in the summer, and Mark, you probably saw him too. I watched him this summer, watched him in the preseason. The guy that stood out to me the most was Igor Milicic because of everything and finishing around the rim. You can go on and on with what he brings to the table.
He looks like, and I've said this to you before, you've got two of your daughters in here today. They're coaches' kids. They play ball. This guy looks like a coach's kid. He looks like he grew up in the gym, and he can do a little bit of everything. To me, he's the most well-rounded player you've had here in a long, long time.
Yeah, he is. But
Go ahead,
But
knock it. Tell us we're wrong.
What keeps us in the back of my head is what is Tennessee? When has Tennessee struggled? Is when they've gone in these 4 minutes offensive lulls. That's when our defense. You can put anybody out there, we're going to be in the game. But the guy that's been the missing link with the Dalton Connect last year while we had the run, the guy that is Chaz Lanier, is a guy that can just go make a shot. And nobody else can go just make a shot. Can take a guy off the dribble, can get in space. Like Chaz is that guy, and that's when if you look across the country, the teams that end up making a run, they have that one guy. And we got there with Chaz. Now, Igor is the most valuable, but like if it comes down to a big-time game, you got to have a guy like Chaz.
Well, where would you have been last year against Purdue if Connect didn't just say, okay, give me the ball?
Right.
Or
Or Auburn
clear out and give me the ball.
against something like he just, yeah.
Yeah. Now, one interesting thing, I'll just throw this in. I didn't use it this week, but I wanted to look up, and they're now tracking it because I had griped about this. Is there a way for them to track droughts? Because we talk about that at Tennessee so often. Well, we're always going on these droughts. Tennessee, toward the bottom of the league in terms of those droughts you're talking about. Everybody gets them, is the point. But yes, you're right. The one guy who can get you out of that is Chaz Lanier.
I think you had some of those early on. I think that's why you have those Lanier numbers that you did. Is maybe early in the year you had to have Lanier get you how to. But he was most of their scoring in some games in the first half. So I think those numbers will even out and maybe be more in Lanier's favor as the year goes on and they continue to improve.
Yeah, Lanier, he had that 8-0 run in, a minute and a half yesterday, and there was no looking back after that happened.
All right, very good. When we come back, looking ahead to a tough week on the road, Tennessee, how they compare to the Gators and the Longhorns, what the Gators do well, what the Longhorns do well, what Tennessee does well. They each lead the league in something. We'll show you. Come on back.